Alright, what's up everybody? DOGG back again, and today I want to talk about servicing my reels. This is something I feel like a lot of people tell me, they're kind of intimidated by it, or it's too time consuming or stuff like that, and it's really not. It doesn't have to be super in depth, but hopefully it's only going to be about a 20-25 minute video, and we'll take this whole this is the new Curado 150 MG. Doesn't really need to be cleaned, but all my reels are pretty up to snuff at the moment, so why not just take apart a newer reel for those folks that maybe want to take a look at it. Speaking of the Curado MGL, or MG I guess they call it, it's a solid reel in my opinion. I don't know if it's quite as good as the K. Maybe we'll do an in-depth video on that at some point, but schematics and all that stuff, I don't really look at these unless I'm in like a bind. But for me personally, I'm all self-taught and I learned off of YouTube. So that schematic that comes in the box, that's just something that if I were to get stuck or overwhelmed somewhere deep in this reel, I'll look up what part that is giving me fits, Google it, or YouTube it I should say, and you'll normally find a video on someone helping you out, and that's how I learn best, and you're good from there. But anyways, let's get down to it. Got this little Abu Garcia servicing kit. We sell these at Palmetto State Armory, although we might be out at the moment. If you guys really want one, Tackle Warehouse has it. Comes with like a 10-11 millimeter wrench, a little flathead, Phillips head screwdriver, some degreaser, lube, oil, all that, a little cleaning rag, and a brush. For me, I probably should have gotten my toothbrush, but this little guy comes with is pretty solid. I can get some good nooks and crannies. The 10-11 millimeter wrench it comes with will normally get any handle off, or doesn't seem to do it with the locking nut on the main gear. Normally I got to get a pair of vice grips or something for that. But I believe out of the factory, I think I can get it off with just my own two bare hands, man. So first things first, I'm just gonna take the handle off. Just get that out of the way. Just a little screw there. And I'll try to lay this out kind of neat for you guys, because that's how I learned. Was when you're taking a reel apart, kind of go in your order of operations. Line that thing up on a cloth or a paper towel, exactly how you took it apart, so that way you're not confused when you got to build the thing back up. But get that little 10 millimeter wrench, get that little locking nut off. Let's get this guy out of here a little more to the side. Alright, there's my handle, drag star. So I got my little handle accessories right here. Let's get that brush out of there. Drag star. There is not a little spacer under that. There's a spring for the drag. Yep, I can just get that off with my hands. If it is too tight, I'll normally take the thumb bar, push that down, locks the clutch. It's not going to go anywhere, and you can kind of get that off. But definitely re-engage the thumb bar before you take it apart. I can just kind of make it a little bit difficult when you're knee deep in this thing and way inside the reel. There's a little O-ring right there, and we'll get those out later. Pop the side plate off. Get that spool out of there. I will say a lot of reels seem to do this. Keep the side plate attached by that bar right there. I don't like that, it's annoying. But performance wise it doesn't do anything. But there's my reel, spools out, all that. We'll lock that thing back up for now. And there's going to be a couple little rings right here. Then you have your anti-lock sleeve, I believe it's called, that sits on the drag stack. You take the side plate off. I'll tell you what, we're going. A little tension knob off of there. Let's see. This thing definitely wants a flat head. This little screwdriver that comes in the Abu kit, for the most part. So I'll have to go inside my drill bit kit here, because Curado MG doesn't seem to like either the Phillips head or flat head that's on that Abu wrench. So let's see here. Probably edit this out while I look for the dadgum son of a gun. A little small. Yeah. Yeah. 4mm. Alright. Our bit here, I should get it off. Oh yeah. Get that screw out of there. Depends on the reel, but sometimes it's all the same length screws, sometimes it's not. And if it's not, then I try to, configure it how it, looked this way on the side plate. Because you don't want to strip any screws or something. You don't need to. We got two more on the back right here. See, those are a little longer, bigger threads. So we know those are on the inside of the plate. Got two. There you are. You got the big micro module gear. Looks like they went back to brass, but what is that brass on? I don't know. I'll have to look that up, but something I believe different was in the K. You've got it's like two different materials meeting there. I don't know. Lighting's not too good in here, but that out of the way. Probably won't need that for a minute. I'll take my springs off my pinion, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this reel definitely probably doesn't need any work, but just for the sake of, just like to kind of poke it out. Just for the sake of the video, though, we're going to take it apart and show y'all. So, I mean, this thing is pretty doggone clean on the inside. Got my big main gear off, all the washers on there. And got a clutch right there. But there's the reel. We're just going to let that be for a minute. Definitely recommend you guys getting this. I put it in everything. Anything that's got big geary teeth. I mean, I use it on my gears. But I'll also use small amounts, maybe on the worm gear for the line winder up there. It's just, it's thick and it stays where it's supposed to be. But it still has, that slickness and buttery feel that just, that Shimano grease is incredible. But anyways, we got the whole reel off. I mean, if this was dirtier, I'd probably clean all up in here with a little brush and all that. Get the rag out, and sometimes I'll use a Q-tip, but kind of roll it up real dense, so that that hair doesn't spread around. But get in all the crevices. Like I said, this doesn't need it. But we're just gonna pretend like I've cleaned this reel, and now we're going to the servicing part of it or whatever, greasing this thing up. Let's get a little bit on my fingers. I'll kind of roll it around these two gears right here. Just kind of rock it back and forth. They're kind of working. That's good to go. Alright, so we got it all like this. Got the springs off my pinion. Just gonna pull that pinion right out. Leave it right there, and you know, that's, for the most part, majority of the time, unless you just neglect your reels for years and years and years, that's the deepest you'll ever go, right there. It's not too hard to, you know your way around and get this thing all serviced, and you know, not get lost in your reel and get worried about, you know, losing a part or doing this thing wrong or stripping threads or whatever, you know, something that'll compromise the reel. That's the deepest you'll ever go. The majority of the time, that's all you need. So we kind of got this whole thing broken down to the point that, you know, this is the farthest you'll go majority of the time for whatever you need. I've already lubed up those little gears right there that show the drive shaft. Just give them a little extra love, but what I'm going to do is just kind of build this stack back up. You know, if there was dirt and stuff on all these, obviously wipe them off, but I'm still going to kind of just get them, you know, wiped off a little more. For the sake of, let's make this thing kind of feel brand new. Gonna take my Shimano grease right here. You're just gonna kind of take little tiny bits, rub it in your hand, and just kind of get that, get a nice thin coating all over each gear and washer and all that, and just, you know, rub it around till it's kind of all on there. And we're just gonna build everything right back up. All right. This little guy, same thing, be real gentle with him. A nice thin coating on that. Voila. Slide it down real nice. Same thing, just keep using little globs and cover the hole. Make a real thin coating on the whole inside of this gear right here. You know, doesn't have to get all the way in the cracks, it'll eventually work its way around. Same thing, just a real thin little coating back here. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Get on there. Purdy. She's not going to want to stay up right now. Love that. Real thin coating on here. Real thin. I don't mind about getting a little grease on my frame and stuff. I know it's all over my fingers, but get a little wipe off action here. Honestly, looks pretty good. A little speck of dirt right there. Get off of there. Okay, I'm just gonna do a little bit on there. Get just a little tiny bit of dirt. Bam. Washer assembly's all good to go on that main gear. Before I do that, I'm going to take that pinion that we pulled out. Obviously it's not dirty, but you know, it's probably, looks like it's the same grease. We're just going to wipe off that excess, and we're going to make our own. If your reel's in really bad shape, you know, sometimes you can take a Q-tip and get it through there and just get all the little dirt and grime. So I'm looking at the camera, that thing looks pretty spotless, at least on the inside of the pinion. Okay, just a little wipe off right there though. I will say there's a little bit of grime in this gear on the pinion. So just Just gonna give that a real quick little wipe off. Up here looks good. I'll take a break to just kind of wipe my hands off, clean that pinion up, put it back on its little seat, and keep going from there. Alrighty, just gonna wipe off that little bit of dirt that we worked out with the brush. So I'm getting a little bit on the PT here. Come on. Sir. Pinion's looking right. This is where you can sometimes mess up. Sometimes you got to pay attention to these ramps that sit on the pinion support right there. This one kind of comes up that way, and that sort of half moon shell, you know, seat that the pinion sits in, it's always going to be facing out. Like that open side will be facing the main gear. So then from there, you know, if you were to get mixed around, all right, both my ramps are going that way, cool. Double check it before I do, cool, yep, it fits. That's the way it's going in. Those are little teeth that the spool shaft grabs to. Those are always going to be facing in towards the spool. So we now know that our pinion will sit on there like that. And it seems like on this Curado it's going to sit in there pretty easily, but sometimes you got to kind of pull the pinion back. Right there. Just kind of sat in all those teeth real nice. Perfect. So we got that all good to go. I'm going to wait on my springs to put those in because those can fly all around the place. I think in this scenario here, when it comes to actually lubing up the teeth, I'm a little more liberal than others. I mean, if you want to save grease, you really only need to grease, you know, like a third of the gear, and then just work it back and forth, and it'll all kind of eventually work through. But I really like this Shimano grease, and I don't mind having a little excess running around the housing because this stuff is nice and thick, and it almost just helps kind of wick away dirt and water and stuff. And even when it gets dirty, it seems like it still keeps all the teeth and stuff really talking to themselves real nice. So I normally do just like a real thin coat all around the gear, maybe about 2/3 of the way around the gear. Rub it in, some of that excess off the top. Sometimes the pinion will just grab that itself. I'll just slowly go around and work it all in those teeth. Excess on top. Woo. Almost there. Just kind of rock this back and forth a few times. On some reels, I would probably recommend putting the spool back in because the pinion will have a lot of play and it can probably damage those teeth. But in this case, this pinion, you know, on the Curado is acting like it's just, there's a spool shaft already through it. Typical Shimano, their pinions, their support systems are pretty awesome. Nice, good coating working around there. Like I said, that's probably a little much by some people's standards, but I don't mind it. But things all ready to go. So now from here, I'll put these little pinion springs back on. Those are very important. Otherwise you'll go to engage your clutch and it won't come back up, and you'll be like, what is wrong? Those suckers just kind of sit on there. I normally put the anti-reverse sleeve on first. Same thing, you know, you can wipe it off, but there's almost no dirt on that thing. It's gonna sit right there in those little teeth on that top washer right there. It looks like we got a ball bearing that sits on top of it, but I believe that goes in. Yeah, it looks like it's got a little seat up there on top. I brought that little bit of grease right there. Yeah, we'll go back to that in a minute. I'm gonna get this housing screwed back on. Those are the backside screws. I know, because they have the bigger teeth. Boy. Wish I had a magnetic screwdriver. Some situations where I can get really finicky with these little screws. Alrighty, housing's put back together. There's a O-ring that sits on top of that ball bearing, but that's a ball bearing that sits on the drive shaft. Slides right in there. This is where I'm going to come with my lose oil. Come back here, spool. I love this stuff on stainless bearings. Man, it really lubes them up. All you need is like a little drop. I'll take the drop and I'll take the nozzle of that drop and just work it around that bearing. That's all you need. You don't need a whole bunch. Alright. That ring back on. Drag washers. It's going to be hard to see, but they're always going to have like an angle, like a Pringle chip. And if you want smoother drag, you want to stack those to where there's some tolerance. So like right here, they're both sitting at the same angle. I'm not going to have that fluidity and control of my drag, but I will be able to torque it down a little more. But this is a 6.2, this is a cranking reel. I want some very responsive, smooth drag, and that's normally how it comes out of the factory as well. But put those back on. Put that sleeve back on. Same thing, if this reel was dirty, I mean, all these little teeth and stuff, like right here on the drive shaft, would have all been cleaned off with a toothbrush, but she won't be smooth. Smooth, smooth, smooth. Be careful, some of these drag stars, sometimes they'll have a little spacer that'll sit under them or above them, and they'll get stuck to your handle or whatever, and you won't know they're there, and then you go to pick it up, and there it goes on the floor, and have fun finding that for 10 minutes. But they're all going to have the same shape that drive shaft is. You just got to kind of work it on there. Son of a gun. See right here. Click right there. Got to make sure it's lined up because it has a square shape that's going to sit on top of that locking nut right there, whatever it's called. Otherwise, if it ain't lined up, you ain't never gonna be able to get this thing on. You'll be sitting there wondering, you know, how the hell does this thing go back on? So, putting that drag star back on, sometimes you're going to have to re-line it up. Right there, the way it's going to go on, it's almost like, you know, a baseball diamond shape. So I got to make sure the inside of that square is going to match up like this. So I can slide it back on. And regardless of reel, you know you'll have your drag star enough. There's going to be a little, probably can't see it, a little ledge that your handle, or if there was a spacer there, would sit on. And that's how you know you've got your drag star on far enough to put the handle on. If not, you're not going to be able to use the drag. You have to take the handle back off and try over again. These little knocking nuts for the handle love to go on crooked sometimes, but that one threaded perfectly. How about that? How about that? My little wrench, get it nice and taut. Sometimes I might take some jimmying with it to get the sleeve back on, but that time right there, nailed it. Screw. Same thing if this reel is dirtier, you know, we would still have that handle off, because I'd be taking off these handles and getting all up in there and cleaning them out, but we don't got to do all that. Same thing like taking the whole drive shaft off and getting inside there and doing like, it ain't that dirty yet. If you guys ever want me to in the future, we can go that deep, but like I said, I don't think I have any reels that need it right now. But anyways, you know, housing's all good to go. Got my little tensioner knob, same thing, there's a ball bearing in there. We're going to take that grease. Like I've been saying all video, if it was dirty, this would get cleaned. It's not. Just take a drop and kind of rub it around. Bam. Good to go. Get the side plate back off. Same thing here. Looks clean. Take another drop of that loose oil. Spread it around. Spread it around. Cool deal. Get this sucker on real loose. Let's get it on there for all intents and purposes. I do like to wipe off my spool shaft regardless. Same thing with your pinion on the inside of the pinion. You always want to try to keep that as dry as possible. The same thing with your spool shaft. You know, it's you don't want a bunch of dirt and grime and all that on there. Grease, what have you. There, my pin's good, yeah. But no spool shaft bearing on here. There is one that sits in here, and I can access it from right here. Same thing, uno mas drop of lube oil in there. Bam, spool shaft is dried off, cleaned off. Whoop. That way. Get her all shut. Get that rock out of there. There you go. Thing's smooth as butter. Yes, I know it's a little round. It's a Curado micro modules. Always got that kind of geary feel. It's smooth yet geary. I don't mind it. I will say though, you give those gears a nice coat of this stuff, and it definitely smooths them out a little more. Makes them a little more quieter. But I personally like that sound. That sort of hum in the gears and the MGL spool going. But that thing right there is going to sling. Like I said, that was 20 minutes it took me to do that. Wasn't crazy. Lay everything out in front of you so you don't get lost. And, you know, keep your reels that you guys love, you know. Keep them as long as you want. use them for the rest of your life. If you know how to service them, keep them clean. A good reel will last you forever. And if you're like me, there's always going to be personal favorites that you'll never be able to part ways with. So hopefully this guys helps. And don't be intimidated. It's not hard. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys on the channel next time.